Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And going into the CDL season, the M4 meta is absolutely everywhere right now and is taking over the state of the game as it stands. 3 or 4 M4s on every single map at this point. The pros arguably saw this coming. It's probably only a matter of time until it gets banned by the pros. And Doug Censor Martin says the reason why certain players don't want to get rid of it is because they'll be terrible if they do. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Couple more days here to sign up for Fantasy for Stage 1 over at the Breaking Point website. This is Parasite's team. Pretty good one, to be honest. Like, this is kind of similar to what I came up with. I had Clayster and Scrappy as well. My team, though, with Simp instead over at FaZe, of course. And then Brack from the Florida Mutineers. He's gone for Spart instead and Octane, which I kind of like. So he's basically like doubling down for a good reason on the M4 meta, right? And saying, look, the M4 players are going to dominate. Everyone using an AR is going to have a good time. And that may well be the case here for the entirety of Major 1. To get involved, link down below after the video concludes. Not sure if there's been any changes to this yet, because Ghost was joking around here about, you know, the way that the Infinity Order UI designer would change the grocery list. I think we heard some rumors they were going to change it up or fix it or make it better. Not really sure there's been any positives on that side of things. Also, a question that still needs to be answered. We talked about yesterday, CDL, is it going to be Twitch? Is it going to be YouTube? You know, we've got a couple of days still to find out here. But also, who is the host going to be? Like, with Veli going, could Lando step into that role full time? Are they going to get Puckett, right? Which I think would be great to see as well. But even Jess Brohard, right, who used to do not hosting stuff, but interviews and on-stage stuff like that. And it's difficult for Jess, really, because now with the league no longer being done on LAN, like, there isn't much maybe room for that to be done in an online environment. I don't know, but she applied for, like, you know, for new talent here, and she just got rejected within 90 minutes. So, you know, that's pretty tough. But, you know, it would be nice to see Jess back in the scene. But at the same time, I guess they're looking for this hosting figure, and maybe Puggett's going to be the man. I don't really know who else more fits the bill than Puckett does. Thought this is kind of funny as well, actually, here. Also, a weird take to me. This is certainly a hot take, I agree. Moscow is one of the greatest competitive maps of all time. Depends where you consider Moscow to be. To me, like, it doesn't even really touch the top 10, to be honest, competitive maps all time. It was a good map. There were some good maps in Cold War. Moscow was good. I don't think it was anything better than good, to be perfectly honest. Hardpoint was alright. Search and Destroy definitely had its moments, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't, like, love playing Moscow by any means, but maybe you guys disagree and thought it was better than I'm giving it credit for. But I kind of agree, like, okay, no disrespect to accuracy intended, but I thought this was kind of funny, right? Like, it was a good map, but come on, it's like the accuracy of COD. A solid player, you know what you're gonna get, and can have his moments he's gonna pop off in, but he's quite clearly a cut below the top pros in the league. Funny, really, because of course accuracy has the most famous player of all time on this map, Moscow. But you know, still, nonetheless, pretty funny, especially because accuracy is heavily involved in this gentleman's agreement discussion, and some players are still going very hard on getting it banned. Honestly, to me, it seems it's only a matter of time. The pros have effectively left it too late. Like, even as, you know, Sasha goes on to say here in a second, they knew this was coming. They knew that the M4 was going to dominate the meta. They didn't ban it, and now they're 2 days away from the start of the season. They can't really get rid of it now. So Doug is adamant that it's got to go, talking to Clay, talking to accuracy, maybe some of the biggest top representatives in that gentleman's agreement representative chat, and, you know, saying it's got to go. Slasher says here, see, personally, I wouldn't allow that, but that's just me. You're so bored. So accuracy maybe wants it in, who knows? Slasher certainly wants it gone, and the FaZe guys want it gone. It makes sense maybe because, look, they've got the SMG powerhouses. They would probably like a world in which both Simp and aBeZy can run the SMGs. As it stands, I would imagine Simp is pretty much on a full-time M4, as is Cellium, as is Slasher, as is probably aBeZy sometimes. Because from what I'm hearing, certain teams in scrims right now are either running 4 M4s all the time, or they're running at least 3. And even as Doug goes on to say, honest question for CDL pros, how are you allowing the M4 in competitive still? I'll buy all the reps, new jet skis if the M4 gets GA'd before the matches this weekend. I mean, that is highly unlikely to happen. But as Sasha says, you know, what the hell? I'll get back in the chat, I'll handle it for you if that's the case. In all seriousness, though, they are drunk and have no idea how to balance. So funny, really, because Sasha is like, okay, Sasha basically says nowadays he doesn't get involved in this, doesn't want to get involved anymore. But, you know, he's obviously still very vocal about what he thinks about GAs. And, you know, I don't know, it'd be interesting if Sasha said, you know what, get me back in that chat, baby. I'm coming in. I'm going to be the new FaZe representative and see, like, if, you know, we could bring back the Sasha World League. But he's been talking for quite some time to get rid of the M4. I think it's almost inevitable at this point that it will happen. But when will it happen, if it will happen at all? Envoy reckons ARs stay blessed. And as Brian Sate now confirms from the Minnesota Rokkr, the meta has officially gotten to the point where there is a minimum of 6 M4s on the map at all times in hardpoint. And as Sasha says, if only we saw this happening weeks ago. So the M4 was quite clearly from the start of the game the strongest weapon, and maybe, okay, the Kastov 74U was banned, then the M4 in terms of ARs, after a week or so, was figured out to be the strongest one. And a lot of pros, like, look, search and destroy might be a disaster, just because if you're on defense, why not just rock up with 4 M4s and hold lanes? Like, that's how good this weapon is. That's just the way the game works. It makes it really difficult to play around that, especially without smoke grenades, which apparently now are back in business. But, you know, I do think the M4 is just probably way too good and way too versatile. And also, like, what is Infinity Ward's love affair with the M4 anyway? We already had this kind of boring M4 dominated meta at times back in Modern Warfare 2019. The MP5 was probably the better gun in that game on the whole, but at least, well, at the start of the game when the 10mm was still allowed and competitive. But yeah, again, the M4's the dominant weapon, right? I'd just be nice to see another AR be the preferred weapon, and potentially it should be the Scar, and maybe if it was the Scar, we would have a 2-2 meta, and that would be more reasonable for competitive play. And as Brian Saint says, no BS, the last team we played only used a Vaznev and SMG for a single hill, or 2 the entire scum, saying that pretty much for every single hardpoint rotation, they had 4 ARs out, if not, you know, sometimes 3, most of the time it was 4 M4s. So Doug gives his thoughts on this. Of course, as an SMG player, he's been struggling so far in this game, and he says, look, pretty much outright, guys, it's got to go, get rid of the M4, and the reason why certain players, Clayster and Scrappy, have apparently been holding the, well, the GA representative chat hostage over some things, maybe not over this, but who really knows, he reckons they'd be terrible if they got rid of the M4, and that's why they don't want to do it.
Clay and Scrap are trying to keep the M4 in because they're both dog shit without the M4. They're nothing without that gun, literally. Take away the M4 and what is Clayster? Think about it. What is Clayster without the M4, guys? Think about that. Scrap. M4 with no scrap equals crap. All right? That should be the new 3-time world champ. You didn't have to say it. You didn't have to say it, bro. They're nothing without the M4. We all know this. This isn't a surprise. They're without the M4. They can't use another gun. Clearly they can't.
Now this kind of goes back to a very spicy moment in the Cold War season that we saw at the start of the game. So in Cold War, the XM4, so like the AK-47 was banned in that game. There were a few dominant ARs. At the end of the game, the XM4 was gone. For a few months, the Krig became the dominant meta weapon, and it was a pretty good meta really with the Krig and the 74U. Wasn't great. It'd be nice if there was another weapon in there, but it's just kind of how it is. With the XM4 being allowed, there was never really going to be an XM4 like plus Krig. The QBZ was briefly in effect or whatever that gun was called, but that also got GA'd, or it was an absolute mess that season. But the XM4 was used at the start of the game. It was clearly the best AR in the game, to be honest. Every pro was using it, and the pros probably knew it was overpowered going into Major 1. They kept it anyway, they used it for Major 1, they went to the actual Major, right, so Stage 1 qualifiers, they played with it, Major 1 they played with it, and then after Phase 1 that, I guess, the teams were like, yeah, you know what, this XM4 is busted. After getting killed with it in a real tournament, they thought, okay, yeah, it's time to actually get rid of the thing. So, and when that happened, right, we got comments from Dashy who were like, yeah, certain AR players, I think he was really talking about Clayster, like they won't be good without the XM4. The XM4 is keeping these, you know, bad AR players looking good, and it was a bit of a spicy thing. And then obviously I think like Dashy individually, maybe he wasn't quite as good without the XM4 either, which makes sense because the XM4 was the best AR to be fair. And then when he had a bad series, Clay then comes out and says this, no XM4A, kind of, you know, clapping back at what Dashy said earlier on in the season. But now a similar argument here being made by Doug about Clayster and potentially Scrappy as well. Now, look, I think Scrappy and probably Clayster as well is going to be nasty with pretty much whatever AR they use. But clearly, Clayster is having a good time with the M4. Makes sense. And maybe he feels like, and potentially for good reason, that having that in play for Vegas is the way to go. They have a very AR-focused team. Like, that team, if it was an SMG meta, would be, like, really struggling, I think. If TJ and Prolute were required to be full-time SMGs to battle Simp and aBeZy and others, it would not go particularly well. However, with Clay, Temp, and potentially Prolute, and potentially TJ getting to run ARs, they're in a perfectly reasonable boat. If you ban the M4, all of a sudden, that potential maybe goes out the window. So you can understand why teams, even if Clay knows full well the M4 is way too overpowered, like, you can understand, and there's a good reason why he wouldn't necessarily be voting for that. And seemingly, like, it takes 9 out of 12 teams or whatever to agree to this, so clearly 3 or 4 teams are still holding out against this, if not more, against the ban. And you can understand why certain teams teams might want to do it. We believe it's potentially Vegas, potentially Toronto as well, and maybe others, who knows. But yeah, to me it seems like it might be a matter of time until it is banned. Doug certainly wants it to be banned and reckons that it really is personal bias and stuff why it's not getting banned. But you know, will the pros change their mind at some point? And because, as I say, if there's still 4 teams that hold out against it, back in Modern Warfare 2019, yes, it was the M4 that was very good, but for the majority of the season, the MP5 with a 10mm was a dominant weapon, and it took them months and months for them to actually ban the 10mm attachments that made the kind of the MP5 not so broken as it was. But like there were teams that were good with the MP5 with the 10mm that didn't want to ban it and didn't want to agree to that GA because it benefited them. And you can totally understand why. So that's why this whole process is an absolute mess. But this is Crone's kind of comments on it here. He basically says, what do you think we should do? So you know, the community reckons either don't GA it, yes, ban it immediately, or wait until after Major 1. My expectation is that Major 1 happens and then it gets banned. That's my prediction, because I don't think they can ban it now. It's too little too late, really, because we're 2 days away. You can't learn an entirely new meta 2 days away from the matches starting. It'd be absolute chaos. But maybe we want the chaos. I don't know. Definitely tweet your thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Wanted to mention this as well from BigTymer because I thought this is a phenomenal video that I just have to share for you guys. So he's talking about this tweet that came out from Crone, which retired pro is this, and many of the OGs don't get much representation here, like you know, the talent versus recognition argument. And Big T goes on to say that really in terms of all the eras in sports and esports, like you know, okay, maybe in terms of pure raw ability and skill, the players 10 years ago aren't as good as the kind of average player of today. But in terms of talent and where the players were at that point in their career, they were deserving of far more recognition than they actually receive. And the way he, like, the analogy at the end is just absolute comedy.
I'll answer this one. I like this question. I'm going to say anyone that retired before Black Ops 2. It's like we lost a generation of talent. And if I get to see one more list, a greatest Call of Duty players of all time list, made from anyone who doesn't understand what all time means, I'm going to blow a gasket. Because it is not easier to play in any era, in anything. You are always competing at a ceiling. And even though, objectively speaking, the ceiling gets higher, it doesn't mean it's any easier to play at the lower ceiling. It's always pushing against the ceiling. So I'm trying to make an apples to apples comparison. I like baseball. No one in their right mind ranks Bryce Harper or Shohei Ohtani over Babe Ruth in a greatest baseball players of all time list, even though objectively speaking, they're probably playing the game at a higher level because the game has evolved, but they stacked on top of the people that came before them. My electrician knows more about electricity than Thomas Edison, but I do not think he's smarter than Thomas Edison.
So BigTymer spitting absolute fact in my opinion. Thought that video was fantastic. And just to finish out the video with this one, Brian sat here, most kills in a grand finals map excluding Advanced Warfare. So AW like was an absolute mess. There were so many kills flying on the map left, right and center. So Brian had to exclude that because if he didn't, then there would just be always 40 bombs. If not, I think 55 was the most in the grand finals by formal. But yeah, these are the numbers without. Gunless has the most. Atlanta 2018. Like I mean, yeah, World War II 50 in the grand finals. That's pretty crazy. The one that is almost most impressive to me is Aches back in 2014. Ghost was not an easy game to drop kills in, and he dropped 41 in the grand finals at UGC Niagara 2014. I think he had 27 in just the first half, so that was pretty absurd. But yeah, Octane has a lot of appearances here. Scump at a 47, rated as well because that's 44 in the grand finals map 1 on Fringe Hardpoint up against Envy, where they won that map. I think he was using the XR2 in that map as well because the M8 got banned in Ban and Protect. Just crazy times. And also if you guys want something else to do, check out the interview that we did with Prade last night over at the Breaking Point channel. It was a really enjoyable discussion on many different subjects. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.